Zelda. That game I will not stop talking about. I like Zelda. It's cozy, you can usually take things at your own pace, and occasionally it feels much more like I'm playing the Legend of Lawnmower in order to gain enough rupees to continue the never-ending grind to win the shooting gallery minigame, which yes, I did eventually beat at 3 AM after playing for 5 hours straight. But I digress. Zelda is an awesome game with a great backstory. A backstory thought out completely before production that links all together? No, definitely not. But a great one nonetheless, slapped together by Nintendo. Most know that it's the usual, you're the hero, save the princess, save the town, save the world type of game from Ganon or Ganondorf or sometimes Vati or sometimes Majora, you know, that one time. And also a couple other people, but mostly Ganon/Ganondorf. And who are we focusing on today? Ganondorf. Why? Because I want to know why the hell they let this guy live. So join me today as I discuss why it would be probably a good idea to just kill Ganondorf. I can hear you in the comments. But Toby, it's not as simple as just killing him. That shit is difficult, and they sure try, but it doesn't always work. Or, but Toby, that's the whole point of the games that he appears in. And to that I say, you're right. Killing Ganondorf in game is by no means an easy task, and is obviously, you know, the point of the game which makes them fun. But this is not what I'm suggesting. This is just fun, obviously. I'm proposing a way to completely eliminate the possibility of Ganondorf ever coming into power in the first place. It's not a pretty way, and obviously I'm not condoning this in real life, this is just thoughts. But it would be so much easier for them to just, you know, off the baby before anything can happen. But Toby, how would you even know which baby it is? I hear some of you asking in the comments again. But to understand that, you'll first have to understand races. Races in The Legend of Zelda have, to my knowledge, almost always been a prevalent part of the game. Examples of races include Gorons, Zora, Rito, which are an evolution of the Zora, Kokiri, which are essentially just like forest-dwelling Hylians, Koroks, which are just evolved Kokiri, which is odd, Sheikah, who are also essentially Hylians, but like a specific group, the Gerudo, and of course, you know, just like standard Hylians. There are more races than that, and some appear more than others, but the ones I mentioned are like the standard, everyone knows about them sort of groups. Relevance? Well, it just so happens that Ganondorf's race is a huge contributor to the viability of this idea. You see, if Ganondorf were Hylian saying, why don't we just off all the males in order to prevent huge world-ending shit from happening, wouldn't be viable. Not knowing specifically which male is Ganondorf leaves only the option of offing all the males and thus, you know, essentially end the whole Hylian race. Far worse than what Ganondorf would have caused if he came into power. However, as many of you will know, Ganondorf isn't Hylian, nor is he Goron, Zora, Rito, or Kokiri, or Korok, or anything like that. Ganondorf is Gerudo. The Gerudo are characterized mainly by two things throughout Zelda's history, being thieves and living in the desert, except there is also one more thing that is important, and that's that they are primarily made up of women. Primarily being the key word here, as every 100 years, one male Gerudo is born and is made to be their leader, and from what it seems, that's a dice roll whether the male Gerudo will end up being Ganondorf. So, offering one male every 100 years. Doesn't sound nearly as bad, does it? Well, thinking about this on the surface poses 4 clear issues, and today I'll be aiming to disprove these 4 reasons in an attempt to save Hyrule from a lot of hassle. The first, and possibly most predictable issue I might see one raising when talking about this is the issue of reproduction. Given that there is only one male every 100 years, reproduction must be low, and without a male Gerudo, it would surely come to a halt. Wrong. We can clearly see that the Gerudo population is doing completely fine and on par with many of the other civilizations throughout Hyrule. How? Genetics. In Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom, and probably in other games that I haven't gotten around to yet, we clearly see that relationships between Hylians and Gerudo are common. Usually this means the Gerudo will have to leave the village in search of someone, or wait for Link to come along and offer her a job in some new town, and then she gets married, but basically what I'm saying is that these relationships aren't uncommon. And even better, Tears of the Kingdom shows us that reproduction between Gerudo and Hylians is completely possible through the introduction of Madison, the daughter of Ronson and Hudson. Even better, Since the Gerudo population seems to have been doing well for quite some time, it's very likely to assume that Gerudo is the dominant gene. I'm not an expert on genetics or Punnett squares or something like that, but my assumption is probably something that looks like this. But I'm not too sure. I also don't know if like there's a 100% chance that they could, but I think it could just be like the 75-25, but we just don't have enough data for that. Either way, the population is completely fine without the male Gerudo, and therefore my theory wouldn't negatively impact the population. Tradition is a huge factor that could lead to disproving this argument. We know that there is one Gerudo male born every 100 years, and according to Zelda lore, he is destined to become their leader. The issue is, this leader usually means, when it is Ganondorf, not only is he evil as hell and has evil plans, he has the means to execute them by having a whole race behind him in support of him, and even if they don't necessarily support his actions, I doubt they'd have much say in what they do with a guy like that in charge. We also know that Gerudo Town runs mostly smoothly without a male leader, and I doubt the gender or sex of a leader would have any real impact on how much the Gerudo population quality of life was. All of this to say, I doubt the Gerudo going without a male leader would lead to a lack of leadership within the Gerudo community. Imagine you are standing on some train tracks near a lever. Ahead of you are 5 people tied to the track, and on the way is a train that will certainly kill them if not stopped. Unfortunately, there is no way to stop it, but luckily the lever next to you, if pulled, will divert the trolley onto a different track. The only catch is, one person is tied to that track. What would you do? Well, if you're like the majority of people, you did some quick math and realised that by pulling the lever, fewer people die. Obvious answer, right? Well, the trolley problem is often debated as it brings up a situation in which you are actively making a decision. By not pulling the lever, 5 people are killed, but it's only due to your inaction, not a physical action you must complete. Why do I bring this up? Well, it's extremely similar to our situation with Ganondorf. Imagine those 5 people are, all of Hyrule. And imagine that one person is Ganondorf. By not doing anything, you allow Ganondorf to live while inadvertently leaving Hyrule to die. But by pulling the lever, in this case, offing him, Hyrule is safe and it eliminates a future problem. In my opinion, I feel like one person every 100 years is much more preferable than the presumably hundreds of people who suffer whenever Ganondorf shows up. The fourth and final concern is effectiveness, and to be honest, I don't know with this one. It could be likely that this rule were implemented and the mother would refuse taking drastic measures to ensure he grows up, or maybe awaiting the arrival of a new king. He is stolen shortly after he is born, and since he is chosen by the Triforce of Power pretty often, could it be possible? Or would fate protect him and ensure his survival? I don't know. And this is the one point I didn't really have any concrete evidence against. So I'll leave this here. This video obviously isn't meant to be taken seriously. I'm sure there are points I've missed that completely destroy all of my arguments, but again, I made this because I thought it was a fun video idea, not because I had some sort of vision that I had solved the Zelda universe. Also, I know doing this wouldn't actually solve the problem because Ganon, the non-humanoid version of Ganondorf, is still able to appear, but at least he wouldn't have like a whole civilization backing him. Either way, Link would probably save the day anyway, so what do I know? Thanks for watching.